I found my league starter and I will take the bullet if it's bad. Hey everyone, my name is Gruffy. Today, we are looking into some of my league starter suggestions for the upcoming 325 Settlers of Kalguur League. I would rate today's video on an 8 out of 10 on the sarcasm scale. The build guides are for real, but don't mind my strong sarcasm in this video. Our full guides can be found on Your MMO, a website for Path of Exile news and guides, but also other games like World of Warcraft. Like Max Roll, for example, we offer you an amazing pop-up window for you to subscribe for an ad-free viewing. And like other websites, we also promote real money transaction for your divine orbs. Wait, we don't promote real money transaction? No ads and no subscription fee? Wait, what? And the Twitch stream showcase will not count visitors as a viewer because they have to consent? Oh shit, never mind, okay. Anyways, I'm a bit speechless now, so let's hop directly into our league starter builds. Talking about the pros and cons about this build. It almost sounds too good to be true, so therefore be really careful with this. Our passive tree is currently level 85 to unleash the full potential of your defenses. We are ailment immune, we have 90% effectively block chance for spell damage and physical attack, we have high armor and high strength to use the new armor set, we are not using any mana bullshit that other builds use to control our rage, we don't need strength stacking in the early game, but have a very high ceiling later on with the strength stacking build. In my opinion, a perfect Delirium and Simulacrum farmer. Rage Vortex is a great skill to just run around and kill everything on your way, and it has only one button. Okay, only two, if you consider Leap Slam. Everything else is automated. Coming to the cons now. The reason why we look for something else than Berserker to play Rage Vortex is the heavy nerfs and the new talents that we have on the talent tree. Because Warcries do no longer give Berserkers more rage gain, we are also not using that regular shield that everyone used. Biggest problem right now is we have no PoE. They have not done an update. PoE Planner has an update for the talent tree, and this is the one we're going to showcase today. But as long as you don't have a PoE, we're going to be lacking some damage numbers. If I decide to upload this video before PoE did an update, do not be worried, I will gonna post a PoE in the video description. The written guide, with talent trees using PoE Planner, can already be found on our website. We have an insane Ascendancy that gives us up to 100% more, so multiplicative, damage against rare and unique enemies, but it says in your presence, and I don't know what in your presence means, it's not nearby. Another Ascendancy node gives us lucky chance to block attack and spell damage. But does it really behave like spell suppression is lucky? There's no reason why it wouldn't, but that's still an open question. Rage Vortex of Berserking is a transfigured gem, so the acquisition of the gem is not as easy. And the biggest problem with damage taken I see is chaos damage, so we need to make sure we have high resistances. Coming to the secret sauce of this build now. Versatile Combatant has been moved further now to the left side on the passive tree, and it only reduces maximum chance to block by -10% and no longer -25%. This is a huge buff, and we have no problem pushing our spell block up to the maximum amount of 68%. Blocking overall is kept at 75, but we're gonna have a talent that gives us 3% extra block. Rage has been reworked and can now be found on the passive tree. With a lot of rage nodes, we can get up to 18 rage per second. Rage now stacks every 0.5 seconds, and also it grants now 1% more attack damage instead of increased attack damage. Our Ascendancy has been reworked, giving us a new Ascendancy, War of Attrition. This is also 1% more attack damage, up to 100%. And finally something that I couldn't find anywhere else, chance to block attack or spell damage is lucky. And PoB would calculate this up to later to 90% effective block chance. Keep in mind that blocking just negates all damage incoming. So if we can trust these lucky numbers calculated by PoB, we are avoiding 9 out of 10 hits. We're also going to make sure they're going to use an axe in our main hand, because axes are the only weapon that have the mastery with gain 2 rage on hit with axes. Rage Vortex of Berserking consumes 3 rage per second and 20% more every second. Meaning that, according to my math professor at university back in the days, this should cost 18 rage after 10 seconds. If I compare this to other rage voting builds from last season on YouTube, that's a fairly good number, considering that when we hit enemies, generate 18 rage per second almost. There's also one talent that gives us rage when we are hit by an enemy, instead of like just hitting them. If this counts extra, we don't know, but hopes are high. I still have to look into a leveling section. It's been a while since I personally leveled a Rage Vortex character, especially a Gladiator, so you will find the leveling section and the leveling talent tree in the PoB later on, including all gems that we want to use. For our Ascendancies, we're gonna start with Weapon Master, just to get a quick, good boost of damage while using an axe. This also would apply to two-handed axes if you still use one during the leveling. Towards the end of the campaign, we want to make sure that we are super tanky. Determined Survivor is our second And more than skill is our third ascendancy that we want to scare. War of Attrition is doing a lot of damage, but it ramps up to 100 seconds. And we are not planning anytime soon in the beginning to stay around a mob for almost 2 minutes. Therefore, it's gonna be our last ascendancy we scare. In our mid-game talent tree, we're making sure to pick up all rage nodes that we can find, which increase our maximum rage and our rage gain on melee hit. As a casual melee, we also gotta pick up all nodes that increase our damage with one-handed axes. Because during the mid-game, we do not have an Enlightened Gem, or money for a cluster jewel either, we're gonna make sure to pick up the mana reservation node in the top, and why not some maximum resistances with the Corrupted Blood immunity. Maybe later on we're gonna have a jewel that has Corrupted Blood immunity as well, but I think a good League starter should not suggest Enlightened or Corrupted Blood immunity way too early. This is a whole list of all gems that we want to use. On the right side, you're gonna find replacement gems, and they're just a little note before you achieve certain gems or even a 6th link. Starting with Rage Vortex of Berserking. We're gonna be adding Pulverize, melee physical damage, Brutality, increased critical damage, and concentrated effect to it. During mapping, you can switch concentrated effect for increased area of effect. And as long as you don't have a 6th link, just don't use critical damage, because your crit will be rather low in the beginning. For our auras, we're gonna be using Purity of Elements, Determination, Blood and Sand, and an Enlightened Gem. But don't worry, our mid-game talent tree will have a mana reservation passive, so we don't need that Enlighten in the mid-game. This is just for later to save us some talent points. We're gonna have some more auras, Vitality, Precision, and we're gonna be coupling this with Arrogance. This will cause these auras to reserve life instead of mana. For our curse, we're gonna be playing Assassin's Mark and Mark on Hit. Because our mana is low, we're gonna be using the life tap support to compensate for that. As our Warcry, we're gonna be using Battle Mage's Cry and Call to Arms. Call to Arms is a support gem that will make our Warcry automatically trigger. It therefore does not have a cast animation. If you want to go safe, you can also use Enduring Cry for more defense. While Molten Shell, Blood Rage and Automation together, so we really don't have to press any buttons anymore. Leap Stem is going to be our only movement skill. If we have some spare sockets left over, just use faster attacks to make it even faster. Looking next into our jewels. In the beginning, we're looking for regular rare jewels with crit multi, max life, and maybe added physical damage with axe attacks. Later on, we're gonna be wearing the Tomb Fist gloves with 2 abyssal sockets, and for that reason, we're gonna be switching the regular jewels for Murderous Eye jewels. One of the strongest unique abyssal jewels is Tekrod's Gaze. For that reason, we want to have more Murderous Eye jewels in our setup. Just keep in mind that this jewel is very expensive, and you should not consider this early on. What you also should not consider early on is a cluster jewel. First of all, make sure to level up, farm some currency, and then maybe you can look into that. We're looking for a cluster jewel with increased global physical damage as a main base, with the notables of Battle Hardened, Furious Assault, and Master of the Fundamentals. And surely, if you have the budget for it, you can go for a Watcher's Eye and Forbidden Flash and Flame, with the Bane of Legends mod, which would grant us Reflect immunity and a lot of more extra damage. But keep in mind, this is super expensive. Our written guide includes 3 columns for early game, end game, and late end game. Before anyone complains that there are very expensive items in my guide, keep in mind that I just want to showcase some items that players can aspire to over weeks instead of just days. After the campaign, we start mapping with a rare helmet with basic stats like maximum life, attributes, and resistances. Abyssus is going to be our endgame item. Luckily, Abyssus is really not that expensive. Our rare body armor after the campaign follows the same trend with maximum life, attributes, and resistances, but one of the coolest non-strength stacking body armors that we can wear is Loreweave. And everyone can farm Loreweave. Just sell 60 unique rings to the vendor and he will hand you a Loreweave. Really late into the endgame, we want to replace our rare gloves with Tomb Fist. These are gloves dropped in the Abyssal League. We want to make sure that we have 2 Abyssal sockets on them, which already increases the price, and then it can roll random modifiers. We want to make sure that we're gonna get Fortify and Onslaught by socketing Murderous and Searching Eye jewels. That combination could become a little bit pricey. We could later on wear Ralakesh's Impatience, but our build currently sticks to rare boots with maximum life, movement speed, resistances, and attributes, and as implicits we're gonna use action speed and life regeneration. A rare amulet would be really great. Level 2 all skill gems would be already enough. We don't need to have a +2 amulet. We also want to look for spell damage, because this is going to be increasing our damage of the Rage Storm. As an anointment, we're going to be using Marked for Death, because having Culling Strike in our setup is just another extra bonus. For rings, we want to make sure that we have some basic stats on it, and later on we can look for attack speed and physical damage to attacks as well. As soon as we can, we will exchange our rare belt with the Magnate. Our build will have more than 400 strength later on, so we're also benefiting from the chance to do triple damage. Weapons is a little bit difficult. In the beginning of the campaign, we started with a 2-handed weapon. Rage Vortex damage scales with our weapon DPS, and as soon as we switch over to a shield, we are trading a lot of damage for more survivability. We want to make sure that we wear a rare axe with physical damage, added physical damage, and attack speed. And then for the high budget version, we want to go for a heist base, the Psychotic Axe. The Psychotic Axe has been reworked in 3.25 and is now granting us 5 rage on melee hit. which is not even yet included in my calculation for rage gain, but it would give us longer rage storms and way higher rage overall. For our shield, maximum life, attributes and resistance are fine for the beginning. During the mid game, we can check for an unyielding flame. With a few hundred chaos orbs, look for an int-based rare shield, with resistances, attributes and maximum life. But the coolest stats would be spell damage, crafted increased effect of curses, and the Crusader influence, damage per percent block chance. This is the only possible prefix from the Crusader influence, so we will guaranteed get this by just using a Crusader Exalted Orb if it has a free prefix. Looking now into our flasks. As a life flask, we're gonna use the regular Divine Life Flask with reduced amount recovered, but therefore you have an instant recovery. As a suffix, make sure you have immunity to bleeding. The other utility flasks that we use are Diamond, Quicksilver and Sulfur Flask. Especially for mapping, you want to have gain charges when hit as your prefix, and as your suffix, make sure to aim for crit chance, reduce effect of curses, and increase attack speed. The fifth flask that we're gonna use at the beginning is a Rumi's Concoction. This is a granite flask that helps us to get a little bit extra block chance for the early game. As soon as we can ensure that we're overcapping enough with block chance, we're gonna go back to a regular granite flask. And if your budget is high enough, why not the bottle Faith later on to replace your regular sulfur flask. The Atlas passive tree will alter your playstyle a lot, and you can freely choose whatever league mechanic you want to spend your time with. This guide today is not a how to make money guide, but I promise you that you can find those guides rather quick into the season, done by hundreds of PoE players like Scissorin and Steelmage, going for another round of Magic Find group play, especially with the Affliction Wildwood coming back. I will show you today a very basic Atlas passive tree. This tree will focus on progressing your Atlas quickly and shall not be used for the late game. This passive tree focuses on increased chance to drop adjacent maps, allowing you to progress into higher tier maps faster. This tree is very similar to what other content creators would suggest you, excluding all the league mechanics. You will often find the suggestion to pick up Expedition, due to its high profit early on, raw currency gain, gear crafting with rock, and the minimal chance to get a lucky mage blood from Gwennen, but you should decide that yourself, I think. In my guide, we stick to a quick Atlas progression and try to rush up to Unwavering Vision, which grants you 20 Atlas points to freely spend into any league mechanic you want. Just be aware that Scarabs do no longer have an effect on your maps and can't even drop anymore if you scale this. Many farm strategies will focus on Scarabs later on, especially with the new map device slot in the 3.25 season.